Welcome to my Daybreak 2 tier list, alright? This is going to be my own version, okay? There's no official this, official that. No, this is going to be my version, and I want to see, and I'm going to give my opinions on each killer and what I think they are and how well they play, alright? So first up, I'm going to start off from bottom to top, of course. Starting off with boss, okay? Now, whenever you go up against the boss, okay, to me, whenever I see one, it's just like, okay, they're just a regular killer, and all I need to do is just loop them regularly. And to be honest, I mean, that's basically what you have to do just against, I mean, I know that's what every killer you do against is just loop, right? But like against boss, it feels like you're just having a nice relaxing match, okay? I'm not saying that the killer is like, whenever you see them, it's like, oh, it's easy match. But what I mean by is that like, every time you see a boss, you really got to think like, is this going to be really that much of a challenge or not, right? If you are a looper, you could be a gen rusher looper, right? But if you're a looper, you are just going to have honestly a fun time / relaxing time just looping a boss, because all they have is fists and a crowbar. Granted, their fists make them slightly faster, but not as fast as like what they used to be, right? They used to be slightly more faster, but then they nerfed his speed down whenever he has the fisticuffs, because people were like, he's too fast, da da da. Even though I thought he was fine, okay? I personally thought he was fine. But I guess many people, thought to themselves, he's too fast, nerf him, nerf him, nerf him. And so they did. And now he is kind of just in a state of just, he's kind of just not that good. So with that in mind, I'm going to put him at D tier, okay? That is what I think. Many other people might think differently, but from my experiences, from every match I've played against a boss, it's just been like, oh, all I have to do is just loop them normally, and then that's it, right? It's just basically that. It's basically, he's just a normal killer. Like, that's really almost all he has, is basically a normal killer. Granted, he gets a speed boost whenever he hits somebody, which causes for snowballs if there's many survivors around each other. But most of the time, there won't be as many survivors huddled together as you think they might be. So that's why I think it's very situational when his speed boost comes in, when it comes to like using the fisticuffs. So that is what I think. Now, on to the next lower tier killer. I know many people, including myself, think this too as well, and that is Banshee. Okay. Now, when I made my video on Banshee, there's a reason why I titled the video kinda at the end, in between, in parentheses. And that is because her playstyle is just not that fun, okay? And here's what I mean. Yes, you get a speed boost, but then there has to be people around. There is people around. One person, the person you're chasing, but it's like not big of a speed boost as you like it to be, right? I'm not saying it should be a huge speed boost. I'm just saying like, the requirements for it, which is it has to be, the more people there are, the more faster you are, is just so niche, in my opinion, okay? Every time you go against the Banshee, it's not really like you're kind of like, oh my god, it's a Banshee. It's more like you're annoyed at the fact that it's a Banshee, because you know that you're gonna have to deal with that scream, and it's gonna stall the game a little longer, depending on if maybe someone on your team is telling you when the scream's gonna happen and whatnot. But I mean, still, I personally feel like it is just such a more of a stalling match killer, is what I like to say. Because not only is she just not that great in chase, she's just one of the most underpowered gen patrolled killers. It just, through however many matches I've seen, however many matches I've gone against Banshees. And even when they try to gen lock, the gen locking isn't that good with Banshee. Because with Android, you at least get a speed boost and it goes down slightly quicker. With Watcher, you have his passive ability where if you mark a generator and then they blow it up, it goes down tremendously. But with Banshee, it's just like, you have to rely on if there's more than one person on a generator or not. And even then, even if the gen explodes with one person on it, it still isn't enough to just apply good pressure for a decent gen lock, which is why I think gen locking with Banshee even then is still not that great. So that is my reasoning as to why I'm putting her in the D tier list. Now you could argue that yes, she can be very well on like smaller maps like Haverhill and whatnot, but then again, you have to think like, is it really gonna, how long is the match going to be stalled slash last longer before people start to realize that you're starting to do this genlock, and then everybody, and like if you don't down somebody within a certain amount of time in the match, you know, genlocking with 6 people is pretty hard. Okay, I will say that having 6 to 8 people still alive genlocking is pretty difficult. Like even with it's harder with Banshee, because like if somebody's constantly telling people that the timer is going she's about to scream and whatnot, then it's like your scream is useless. So that's why I'm putting her in the D tier list. Next up on the lower end tier list, which, look, okay, I understand there's some people who say that they really like Unforgotten and whatnot, but I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to put Unforgotten D tier list. And here's the thing, right? Through my however many matches I've played as well, like I know most of these are from my experience, but I'm pretty sure most people can agree with me on this. I feel like Unforgotten is probably the second least played character I have, or killer I should say, that I have seen. I barely go against Unforgottens for some reason, right? The most I've seen is probably more of like idols and like slashers and just, you know, even some janitors I've been seeing more of, and watchers and androids. But Unforgotten, ironically, is like forgotten. Like there'll be one every, like, I'll go against one at least every day, 1 or 2 Unforgottens. Other than that, every time I go against, I know that I just have, all I have to know is that all they have is a slowdown, and the slowdown is like not as good as people really think it is. Granted, you can do a thing where if you lunge and press E, it's still, you could basically slow them down while you're lunging. But the thing is that it really doesn't do much. The slowdown is just, I feel like, barely enough to even like help you, because if you're chasing a looper with it, it won't affect them as much as like a gen rusher, right? Which, because gen rushers have lower speed, it does affect gen rushers slightly more. But against a really good gen rusher, if the gen rusher knows how to play well and conserve stamina and whatnot, you're gonna have a tough time, especially if they're at a vault, trying to get them. Which is why I think Unforgotten is not that strong as people think. She does have her teleport. She does have her teleport. Let me say, some of the ups that she has, or well, they have, because they're just unknown, right? Is that they can teleport a good every 65 seconds, and it's instantly, which I really like. But it's still pretty reactable if people know that the locker they're next to is if they hear that whole, you know, that line of, oh hey, open up, and they run away immediately, and then, you know, they might have enough time to react to that. I know some people aren't, you know, react fast enough, but it's reactable is what I can say. It is very reactable, but she does have that teleport to help her traverse around the map, which is pretty fine, because she is mobility, right? She's supposed to be mobility. But in terms of chase, she's really not that all powerful. I'm sorry. That's just from however many matches, even when I played as them, I was just like, wow, this is like not that like great in chase. Like granted, I know that like I've played every killer, so I'm able to play every killer, granted, right? But still, there's certain killers that I play and I'm just like, you know, I'm doing fine and all, but it's like, I feel like this could be better. Like, I feel like this killer can do more if they just improved on, like, their stats more. I don't know why they have to put, like, even when you use the ability, they get a 5% gen slowdown. Like, that's nothing, honestly. They should just, that should just be gone. I don't know why they have that in the description, to be honest. That, to me, is just, like, what was the point of adding that? Like, to be honest. What I can think of is either increase the slowdown, the strength of the slow, I feel like, just a slightly bit more. Not too much, don't overdo it, just slightly bit more. Or make it to where after you use the ability, there's only like, because I know there's a slight, I feel like it's like a 1 second, 1 to 1.5 second delay whenever you use it, which I find honestly ridiculous, but I mean, hey, it is what it is, right? Certain killers do need it, but certain killers don't need it, I feel like, is what I'm trying to say. And I feel like Unforgotten is one of those killers that really doesn't need that 1 second delay after they use their ability. But that's just me. I know different people have different opinions, so I'm gonna just leave it at that. But yeah, that is why I'm putting Unforgotten in the D tier list category. And finally, for the final killer that belongs in the D list category is Apostate. I know there's a lot of big fans of Apostate out there. I know. I've seen them. I've seen a lot of Apostates. Don't get me wrong on that. But I just feel like this killer just is absolutely, I know it. And here's the thing. I know this killer needs some type of like only small adjustments, because if they overtune her a little too much, then she's going to be too powerful. But I feel like in terms of chase and everything in her bubble, it is just so easy to avoid her bubble and just avoid her in chase. It is absolutely bad how bad she is. Like, I feel like, you know, with Unforgotten, she's better, right? But then she has Gem Patrol. You know, Boss is Chase, and I know that, right? But I just feel like Apostate just doesn't have anything. Like, you can try and Genlock as Apostate, but good luck, because you place a bubble on a generator, there's people who will just stay in it and just like still work on it. And to be honest, I know they have to be very careful with how they tweak her, because like she can basically one-shot anybody. But right now where she stands, I just feel like her ability is just not that great, like at all. Granted, if you use it correctly, like at a 50-50 vault, that's fine. You know, she's good on Haverhill and whatnot. But I just feel like you can basically outmaneuver it even if they place it at a loop, and you just transition to the next one, and to the next loop, and so on and so forth. So to me, it's just like, make the bubble, I feel like, slightly bigger. Okay, I know they buffed it to where it gives you salvation stacks slightly quicker, but I feel like they need to make it slightly bigger, because like the amount of times I've been able to just outrun Apostate even in the bubble, and then like just be able to rotate, is just a crazy amount. Unless you guys have any suggestions for her, I just feel like they need to make her bubble bigger, or they're just like not increase the salvation stacks, but like either make it so where I wouldn't say slightly faster in bubble, because that would just be too much. I don't want them to overtune her. I just feel like they have to do something. I know they have to be very careful though. I know they have to be very, very careful. But if you guys have any suggestions on when they can buff, you know, nerf, what they can do, or what I should say, what they can buff to all these D tier killers, right? Let me know in the comments down below, and I'll read them, and I'll probably see what I'll read on your opinions and see maybe, you know, what they can do. And if you think they're fine, that's cool, all right? If you think they're okay, that's okay. But I'll read your guys' opinions on each of these categories tier list. All right, we're moving on to the C tier killers. Okay, so first thing for C tier is I'm putting Showstopper. Now, the reason why I say this is because, yes, I know her nerf that she got was pretty detrimental. Don't get me wrong, okay? The window is not as good as it used to, but you can still do some slight things, some slight pressure tricks, okay? You can still, if they're at a 50-50 vault, place a window down instantly, vault over it, and hopefully get a hit. That works. I'm hoping that works still. I'm pretty sure that still works. If you realize that they're going to an area where there's only like 1 to 2 volts, block that vault off. And if you know they're running out of if they're using a lot of stamina to transition, then use it on that window that they're trying to transition to. So that way they're pressured into like using more stamina depending on how far the next vault is. And that's why she's really good on Gaikara, because Gaikara map transitions are just absolutely atrocious sometimes, because especially if they're on that one side where there's like almost like there's 4 generators. No, there's like 1, 2, 3, 4 generators on one side, and the only good loop there is the one with the wooden plank going up, and then that goes down into a vault. If you mirror that window off, you literally just have they literally have to use more stamina to to transition. And if it's a gen rusher, oh, congratulations, you got a free down. And if it's a looper, you just wait till they use most of the stamina, because the next window transition would be the next transition they would have to go to is that one vault that's next to the stairs below, and depending on how many stacks and how many speed you have, you'll probably catch up to them pretty well, and so on and so forth. But I still think she's slightly stronger than all the D tier killers still, so that's why I'm not putting her in the lower tier, but I'm putting her in C tier. So that is my opinion. Now, I know that 0.5 is pretty reactable. Okay, I know many people don't think it's reactable. No, trust me, it is reactable, because that 0.5 animation is actually just so like, it is bad. You can literally sit on a vault, okay? If you run fast enough to the vault before the Showstopper places the window, and they think, oh, I'm gonna place a window now, and you vault it in animation form, it's not gonna count. And it's honestly, as a Showstopper, you look at that and you're like, wow, this really sucks, doesn't it? Because now it's reactable. Now they can do whatever, and it's like, you know, it is what it is, right? Does it require more skill to use her? Yes. Is she harder now to use? Yes. But is she fun to use though? I don't think so. I think she's just way more harder to use than before. Because before she used to just be able to press E and then block vault, and it's there for like ever almost. And now it's like the window is up there for like 8 seconds, which feels like 5 seconds to be honest. But I mean, hey. And it's like, oh, okay, well, now I can just transition and whatnot. And so yeah, that's why I'm gonna put her in the C tier category. And next in the C tier category, I am putting Stalker in C tier. So reason why I put Stalker in C tier is because yes, she's pretty good on certain maps, just not all. Open maps are her worst nightmare, of course, but she struggles in chase. Main reason is because she's just a regular M1. All she has for her going is stealth, and if you're up against a really good player and they know how to loop well, you're gonna be having not a fun time at all chasing that player, like whatsoever. Like at that point, you either have to chase somebody who is not that good in chase that you know that you can down, or you have to leave chase, stealth, go to the next gen, and hope that you get somebody, right? That's all that really you have with Stalker. She does have a really good lunge, she really does, and she excels, of course, on indoors maps, but it's just a matter of the type of players you're going against. Because if you're going against casual players, you're gonna have a fine time, right? But if you're going against like really attentive, really high level players who like know where you are constantly, and they will like they will put in chat where you are, and just like I've seen that happen with my own 2 eyes. People will type in chat where you are and stuff like that. You will be struggling as Stalker, even on like the indoor maps, because people will run Yan all the time, or Serena, or Kelvin Dart. And so that's her biggest counters, are also just, even that, those are her biggest counters as well, is the survivors that reveal her location. Kelvin is a great example. You know, people might think Yan is really good, but no, Kelvin, can you destroy a Kelvin Dart? No. The dart is literally like so big ranged on Haverhill that you could literally see from the 3rd to 1st floor almost. It's insane how big that range is on Hospital. And so that's why I think that she is honestly a C tier killer and just deserves this spot. Like, good lunge, decent speed, but in terms of chase, it is not that good. Granted, you have to use her in a stealthy way, that's her playstyle, but I mean, 9 times out of 10, how many times are you able to catch someone off guard on a gen that's in the open? Okay, a gen that's in the open, let's say, for example. Indoor gens you can possibly get away with, depending on how well they don't pay attention. But other than that, you kind of have to like rely on your ability of stealth, which is, I know that's her main thing, but that's what I feel like. That's how I feel like she is in terms of is going to be. Who do I not see a lot of also? Oh, that's right. I'm putting Ghost. Okay, now before I get flamed and people tell me, oh, but she has silent phase, oh, but she has this, oh, but she has that, she's able to do this, her lunge, her hip. Okay, let me tell you something. Okay, if all she has is stealth phasing, I don't think that's gonna be strong enough for her to be able to do map pressure. There's certain gens, yes, you can stealth phase on, which will scare people, but then at the end of the day, her chase is absolutely just similar to bosses, except that the reason why I put her up 1 of boss is because her stealth phase. That's really it, right? And you might be thinking, well, stealth phasing is very powerful, isn't it? Yes. Yes, it is. But you know what counters it? What counters stealth phasing? Attentive players. Or if not, people who use just sonar dart or any other of those detection. Serena is the biggest counter. Her biggest weakness is Serena. Literally, if there's a Serena in the match and you're Ghost, congratulations. Your stealth phase ability, or you trying to stealth phase, done. Because after you get it down, you have a red thing on your on you, and you have two choices. You either have to wait for it to run out, which wastes a lot of time, or you have to just stick with it and use it just for transitioning, and that's it. And even then, like, you might think her, just because she has the fastest speed and best lunge, she's still just, at the end of the day, just a regular M1 killer. Just a regular killer that you just, can loop normally. Because I hear many people say her lunge, her hitbox, this and that. I think the issue is that people need to realize that if you just hug a vault close enough, you won't, and then you press space immediately right as they lunge, you won't get hit as often as people do. Or if you vault slightly earlier, you can still get away with it. Remember, you can still outrun her lunge too. She might have the best lunge, but she also has the shortest lasting lunge, 1.25 seconds. So it's like, it won't last as long as, and to me, it's just like, she's just a regular killer that you can just loop normally. And so that's why I think she's in the C tier category. Yes, she does have stealth phasing, but whenever it comes to going into chase with somebody after that, if they don't get a stealth phase off, and then you're on a 30-second cooldown for that phase, good luck. Okay, unless you're chasing a gen rusher, of course, or you're chasing one of the weaker team members, then you're gonna have either a fun time or a very tough time with her. We're gonna move up to actually the B tier category, because that's all I have for C. Who do I actually no, because I feel like there's one more killer. I almost forgot one more killer that belongs in C tier, and that is Possessed. I almost forgot. Oh my god. The reason why I say Possessed is because now I know she got a recent buff. She did get a better buff. So you know what? In terms of that, I'll put her above Stalker. I'll put her above Stalker, and I'll put Ghost above Stalker as well, because I feel like stealth phasing and whatnot is fine. The reason why I say this as well is because she is very, now I know she's not really anti-loop, because if she was anti-loop, she would be able to instantly teleport and then attack. But no, she's mainly, I'm pretty sure she's mainly mobility, which means you can place your orb across the map, almost halfway across the map, I should say, and you can leave it there. And if you need to go back to that area, you can just press the button immediately and go back. I know that's what I think her intention is for. And I know most people don't know this, but with the recent buff they did give her, now that you're able to control whenever you want to go in stealth, it really does help her with catching people off guard pretty well. If you, say for example, place a soul orb near a generator and you hide it, and then you use your ability, okay? You pretend like you see them, right? You see a person on gen, you go and hide your orb, and you go in the direction that they see you going for. So let's say they're working on the generator in Lakeview, right? That's in the middle of the school, and they see you going into the fountain area, but they don't know that you placed a soulfire orb in cafeteria. So whenever you have your stealth ready, you use that ability, and then use your stealth, teleport, and then they're just sitting there wait, what? Weren't you just there? I'll put a video in the link in the description below on who made that idea. I'll put their channel, I'll put their video in the link, and you'll see what I mean. They have really good examples. Shout out to them, by the way, aka Tea Drinker. You guys probably know them. They're growing, and that's really good. Congratulations on them, by the way. Other than that, I mean, I feel like that's all she has going. Of course, you have the usual attentive players counter and whatnot, but I mean, still, at least she's still pretty fun to play in that way, in that play style, of course, of hiding the orb and whatnot. But I still think it's not enough on certain maps. On open maps, you maybe be able to get away with it. I say maybe, because certain spots. But at the same time, it's it depends on the player and whatnot, right? Like I'm not basing this, I'm not trying to base this off of like only high levels, because that's just not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to base this off of like, you know, my experiences with public matches and how many times I've played against each killer, right? So that is what I'm basing it on, is more like public more like public games rather than just like only high level players. Because I feel like if it was only high level players, I'm gonna be honest, most of these would just be like even slightly lower. But I mean, it is what it is, right? I feel like, you know, when it comes to public games, and the more you go against these killers in public games, you'll notice that, like, you know, some people will do well, some people will not do well with these killers, and it just depends on the type of killer you're going against and the type of players you have in the lobby at the end of the day. Because like I said, this all comes down to the type of players you're going up against in Daybreak 2 lobbies. That's the most important thing you have to take away from this. It all depends on the level, on how well their awareness is, and how good they're playing and how good they loop. So that's what it comes down to at the end of the day, I feel like. We're going to move up to the B tier category. And first up, I know people think Principal sucks and Polluted and all that stuff. I feel like Principal is still pretty good. And I know people will say that, but his lunge and this and this and that. But in my opinion, I still feel like he still has slight, because that empowered kick will still help you a lot. And against now granted, against really good players, you will struggle a bit in chase because they'll try and juke it out. But if you're really patient enough, you can still catch them. It'll take just some time depending on where they are looping and whatnot. But then again, like I said, this all comes down to the player. But I feel like he still is pretty strong in terms, because number one, he can basically have infinite speed, right? Almost throughout the whole match. You can basically be almost as fast as, like, more faster than a Gen Rusher, obviously, right? If you just have it out. And also, granted, his lunge might be super short, but I'm pretty sure that's just to balance it out, because if you imagine he had like a big lunge and then he was able to just, no, it would be bad. I feel like, at least. But like I said, this is my opinion. I still have to play him more. Maybe my opinions will change on Principal, but for now, I feel like he's B tier. He's not bad. He's just okay. Like, he's not in a very bad spot. He's just in a middle spot of, like, he can be good, but his counters are, like, pretty noticeable. Like, for example, if you gen rush a Principal fast enough before he's able to get empowered kicks out, you're not going to be able to get as much pressure as you like. But if you're able to down people quick enough after you use your ability, and down people and down people and down people more, you will be able to get as much pressure as you can because of how many times you'll be able to get empowered kick off. And it's actually pretty insane how much he can stall, or not stall, basically like snowball a match, basically. But still, I feel like he's okay. I mean, I don't know what they can really do. I already know that they nerfed the speed of how fast he is, because before it used to be really fast, and now it's like slightly slower. And, you know, of course, vaults counter him. You know, if you juke him, if you're confident enough, if you juke a Principal with his ruler out, then you basically made him just waste a lot of time and whatnot, so he has to move on. But other than that, I mean, he's kind of just in an okay spot, I guess. So I'll put him in the B tier. I'll let him sit in B tier. Okay, on to the next killer, which deserves another B tier spot. Janitor. Not many people really use Janitor a lot as well, but whenever you go against a good Janitor, you really have to watch out for that cracked earth, because that'll either end your chase quickly or it'll ruin your looping by a lot. And it depends on how well they use it and how well they block off a vault, because his cracked earth ability can be very good if you use it correctly, if you use it at perfect timing, and if you put it, you can, because it can go through walls, of course, right? If you use it around a corner fast enough and you're nearby them, you will be able to not only block off of the vault, but you also block off a transition point depending on the map. For example, Wastewater is one of his best maps, I feel like, because every one of those vaults and every one of those transitions is just a thin corridor hallway. And if you use it at just a hallway corridor and you block off one area, you might be able to catch them and they have to go make another rotation. Now, I personally think the best way to use Janitor is you have to use it for when they are in mid-vault animation. And the way you do that is if you're close enough to them and you press E immediately, you will be able to get them to slow down, and as well as they will get slowed down, as well as be within like they have two choices. They can either vault back into you and try and go on the other side, or they can either fake they have to try and fake you in order to, you know, for you to go away. Now, the slowdown does last 6 seconds, and it's pretty good. It's a pretty good slowdown. It's a pretty good way to stop a chase and stop a loop immediately. You just gotta know when to use it, and you gotta use it pretty smart, because there's different ways you can use it. There's a couple different ways, and it's interesting to know that it can go through walls whenever you place it down. And whenever they try to turn a corner, sometimes, for example, in Wastewater, on that one side with the really good 3 loops over there, where they added the new area, those vaults against the Janitor are deadly. Okay, whenever you use Cracked Earth and you try to transition, and if they use it like at the corner of the wall, and it'll block off like the whole vault transition and whatnot, it is so good. So good. Which is why my Janitor video, when I made it, I was having so much fun, because you could just use that thing around, like through the wall. You could literally slow them down with them not realizing that it's like on the ground and whatnot. And it's so good. I feel like it's a pretty underrated ability. Where he struggles is, of course, if they transition well enough, if they conserve stamina, and if it's basically like, if the person knows that you're about to use it and they time it correctly and they go far away enough and they make some decent distance, you're not gonna be able to get it off. The best thing you can do is hope that they go to a transition to a loop where it's like you can maybe get some use out of it, and hopefully they have to or maybe they have to like run into it in order to transition. But other than that, I mean, that's really all the biggest counters he has is. Stunners, of course, that's obvious, though. He's not bad, but he's alright. He's pretty alright. Same goes with Polluted, actually, because they're both slightly similar with each other. I feel like Polluted is actually... I feel like Polluted is not slightly below Janitor, but I feel like he's better than Principal and everyone else. Because... no, sorry. I feel like he's slightly below Janitor, because his oil is actually pretty good. And if you can make them step into it and they vault, you vault 5% faster than an idle would, with 20% vault speed rather than 15. And that will help you a lot in chase. A lot. Which is why not many people realize that if you step into Polluted's oil and you start vaulting, you just made your chase 10 times harder, because now you have to realize that, oh wait, I just stepped in the oil, now I'm kind of have to worry about him vaulting, and he's able to vault faster. So, and he can basically deny like an area, basically, almost. He can deny you from going to an area depending on what area it is. For example, on Graveyard, he can pretty much do pretty well on like pretty open maps. Like I feel like St. Anne's he can do pretty good on shutting down certain loops, because a lot of people like to use that middle loop area, even now that they nerfed it. And a couple other ones I can name, kind of Empire Finance, I guess you could say, because Empire Finance is like, even though it's newer, there's certain places where survivors have to be forced to go, and you can just block off you can just basically stop them from going in that direction, and they're going to be forced to use a whole different area to transition. And on indoor maps, he's just a nightmare to deal with. Like, I feel like if you go into, let's say you go in a classroom, let's say you go into a classroom on Lakeview. You have two options. The Polluted's going to use their ability, and you're going to be forced to step in the oil. Granted, will you be able to get out? Maybe. It just depends on how they play. But I mean, still, I feel like he's pretty solid overall. I won't get too much into it, but other than that, that's all I will say. Who's next? B tier killer. Next up, Surgeon. You know, I know people say that he's hard to use. Don't get me wrong. He's pretty hard to use. You have to get stacks early on, which means you have to rely on going for the players who are not that good at looping. I'm sorry. Okay, that kind of relies on that. And if you can farm stacks off them, you're going to be pretty set for the game, right? And if you can get to 8, if you get to 4, 5, 6 stacks early, oh my god, oh man, once you get to like the 5th, 6th stack, that's where your game changes. You will realize how good he is with that lunge speed. Oh my god, it is ridiculous. Like the amount of times you're surprised whenever like a surgeon you're going against and they reach you and you're like, wait, but he was like back there. That lunge speed is insane. Like if whenever you get, once he reaches max stacks, you have to stay a good distance away or else you're gonna be absolutely like hit from pretty far because of how fast that lunge is. And it's unreactable. Like you cannot react to that at all. But yeah, he's pretty good. He's pretty good. If you're able to get stacks early. If you don't, and if you're smart enough and you don't chase the loopers, you will hopefully have a slightly better match. But it just, like I said, depends on the players as well. You have to kind of target. It's kind of a situation where you have to target the gen rushers type of thing, which it's kind of sad to say, but I mean that's how he's gonna get his stacks slightly easier, right? If you go for the either gen rushers or the people who don't really know how to loop well. So that's really all I can say for Surgeon. He's fun to use. He's pretty fun when you have max stacks, which is really cool. Next killer that belongs in the B tier is going to be actually, oh yeah, here it is. Watcher. There's gonna be a lot of them. Watcher and Android actually. Where's Android? I thought I had Android here. These two are really good gen patrol killers. Okay, these two, whenever you get gen locked by these two killers, congratulations, you just absolutely screwed yourself for the rest of the game. Because if these two are able to patrol these gens back and forth really well, and how close they are, oh my god, it is absolutely, there's nothing you can do. If everyone's a looper and there's a gen lock, good luck. It's just going to be a nightmare to deal with. Unless there's gen rushers. Your main priority as one of these two killers is to try and go for the gen rushers as fast as possible if you can, because those are going to be your worst ones to deal with, especially Anais. If you see that there's an Anais in the match, you better find her quickly or else you are going to have a tough time with that gen lock. So I mean, depending on how good, now it depends on how good the player is, like I said, right? If the gen rusher like is an Anais and they know how to loop well, you're probably going to slightly struggle, but I mean it just depends on how like they play and whatnot. But in terms of other than that, I mean, these two are pretty good. Now, of course, I feel like Watcher's chase is like really bad because his lunge, but his gen locking is pretty good. Like if you manage to make somebody blow up their gen with a marked gen, all that progress gone immediately, just absolutely out the window. And with Android, he's really good, and I'm gonna put him slightly above. I'm gonna put him above Watcher, and that is because he has his stealth ability, or his slight stealth, where you kick a generator, you're fast, you have no red light, and it catches some people off guard on certain maps. Like on Dawnwoods, if you kick the bottom generator and you try and you go up to the one that's above, it'll catch people off guard because like you're so fast and you lunge and they have no time to react. And it's like, oh my god, this killer is able to gen patrol way better than before he used to. And his speed boost he gets is so good. So good. Like I feel like people underestimate his speed boost after he kicks the gen, and it is absolutely pretty good. It's really good. So that's why I'm putting him in above Watcher. But still, these two are still really good. You know, these two together, man, they whenever you get gen locked by these two, you're gonna have such a unfun time as a survivor if you're all loopers, if the last alive ones are loopers, and it's just like, oh man, this is not gonna be good. All right. Next up, I'm gonna put WereWolf as well in B tier. Reason why I say this is he has big counters, stuns, Kyles, and Elijahs. Oh my god, how sad it is to see on Wastewater especially, or any map, Shifty, right? Whenever you see a werewolf and they use their ability and they get stunned by a locker, you know, you think to yourself, that man's ability is already halfway gone at that point. That man is getting no use, no nothing. Which is why I say that I feel like Elijah is his biggest counter, because like 5-second stun is half your ability just gone. And that's like such a nightmare to deal with as a werewolf. Imagine just like using your ability just for you to get Elijah stunned, and now you have to wait 90 seconds again just to use your ability again. Man, that must suck. But I mean, in terms of snowball, he's still really good. I mean, his chase is pretty solid overall. You know, he's able to snowball killers pretty well. I feel like he's one of the best snowballers in the game, actually. But Where he's weak at is kind of like depending on how well his survivor is able to transition and loop well, and if they just are able to just outrun your lunge sometimes, because I know your lunge speed is increased whenever you use it, but if they're far away enough and they time it well, it'll help a lot. It'll kind of hurt you a little bit. But I mean, in terms of that, his chase is solid. I mean, he has solid chase. It's just that, of course, his gen patrolling is not that great, and his ability has such a long cooldown, 90 seconds, which I know why. I just feel like it should be slightly lower. Like, I feel like either 5-10 seconds lower, like 80 seconds. There's no reason of it should be, unless I'm wrong, it is 80 seconds, but there's no reason it should be so long for you to use it. I mean, I know the point of him is just to like be able to down people pretty quickly, but I mean, like, still, in those 90 seconds, people will get either 1 to 2 gens done, and it is like such a annoying thing to deal with whenever you're like playing WereWolf. But other than that, he's a solid killer. He's not bad. He's all right. And last but not least, in the B tier category, we're gonna put Voidskulk, because again, I know they buffed her with her Volt thing and all that stuff, and I know that I just hate that her only playstyle is literally just gen locking. Because I know with their buff, I know that the Volt speed and whatnot is pretty good and all, but like, I just feel like whenever you go against the Voidskulk, you just know it's going to be gen lock, and then you're just sitting there like, oh my god, I have to play like chess now with this killer, because like they're going to try and gen lock I bet this area and that area and so on and so forth. It's just overall such a boring experience. And that's why sometimes whenever I go against the Voidskulk, I'm like, oh boy, is this going to be gen lock central? And if it is, oh boy, right? Good luck to them. If they don't down anybody, and if there's 8 people alive and they're trying to gen lock, it's not going to be fun for them. I feel like 8 people alive in a gen lock is not what you want. If they're able to down some people and kill some people before that, good on them. I just hate going against her because like it is just so boring. Like, you're just sitting there, you have to wait for the gen, right? They kick it, they're sitting on it for a little bit, it has infection on it, and then they move on and so on and so on. It is just not a fun killer to go against, even to play as. I feel like if you're only playing as genlock all the time with this killer, I honestly don't know how you have fun, but hey, you know, it is what it is. Everyone has their own fun way of playing killer, and to be honest, genlocking is not my type of style of playing. I like interacting with survivors, I like chasing them, I like being able to down them like pretty quickly. So, you know, I'm keeping her in the B tier category. We're moving on to A tier. And let me tell you something, okay? A tier is going to be interesting because there's one killer that I feel like that deserves A tier, because I know somebody put them slightly lower, but I'm going to change that, okay? I'm going to put let's start off with the easy ones, okay? I'm putting Warden, of course, A tier, because he is very, very good with ending chases pretty fast, right? His ability is literally, you have to guess, right? There's no animation to it like Slashers, where it's like you can see his knife go up. Nothing. It's just instant. And whenever you see someone about a vault, or whenever you see someone vaulting, you just press E, and you literally slow them down. And then you vault, and then you just get a free down, basically. And I'm sure most of you have seen it on stream. Most of you have seen it on my Warden video. You end chases so fast if you hit that ball while they're vaulting. It is insane. Like, you literally end the chase before like 60 seconds. It is quite literally insane how fast you can down people with the orb. Now, the downside is the cooldown is longer. It's 65 seconds. And if you miss, it is severely punishing, because then you're just back to a regular M1 killer. You still have your lunge and everything, but I mean, still, it is severely punishing. And just like Slasher and all the other ones, because with Slasher, at least you have like a long lunge. You have a 3 ms lunge. He has the 2.5 ms, and he might be fast, but still, it's like his lunge can be pretty inconsistent sometimes too. Sometimes it'll be up to their face or up to their back, and somehow it doesn't connect. And you're sitting there like, how did that not hit? Like, what? And it's just a whole bunch of like different things. But I mean, other than that, his tracking, his passive is pretty solid. Undetectables are pretty much detectable if they are. And what I mean by that is that they leave a lightning trail. And that lightning trail, if they try to run away and hide, it will reveal which way they went. And it's pretty solid. It's a pretty solid passive. and overall just pretty good to just figure out where people went or where they went towards. Overall, all I'm saying is he's a solid killer. Solid killer, ends chases pretty fast and can be really good. Next killer behind him is Slasher. Now, I love this killer, okay? I love this killer so much. I have 600 plus play games on him, and he is just the best, second best chase ender, I feel like. Because if you're able to use his aim and hit all your knives correctly, knife throws, it is so satisfying. It is also very, very good to end chases so fast. Which is why these two are like high A tier, because like they can end chases pretty fast if known how to use really good, right? If you know how to use them. And Slasher is one of those killers where if you're heavily if you're confident with your aim and you know how to use and time the animation, or how to use it around corners and walls and stuff pretty well, you will get some downs pretty quickly, like pretty quickly. And you can do some pretty good map pressure too. Whenever you detect as a Slasher, you'll notice that people will start moving off the generator. And that scares people off, because if they know that you're a good Slasher, they will literally start being scared of standing still in a generator after detect. And that buys you a good enough time to either get to the generator or be able to find a spot where you can line up a snipe. And when they go back to the generator, you'll be able to just hit a pretty clean snipe on them from far away. I've done it before, and it's pretty satisfying and pretty funny to see as well. Now his passive is niche, very, very niche. It's barely noticeable, and it is just not that good. Could it be better? Should it be reworked? Yes. Will it ever get reworked? Probably not. But I mean, I feel like it just needs some type of change. Like, I'm not saying it should be something big, but I just feel like there has to be something else, because the slight speed buff is just not it chief at all. But I mean, he does have some pretty big counters. I mean, every single second hit ability is a counter. If you miss, you lose a minute of like your knife, and that is bad. Granted, you still have a big lunge, but I mean, still, it is like very bad for you, right? And if you are not able to hit your knife throws consistently, you will not be able to do some map pressure at all. Because if people know that you miss your knife throws, they're not going to be scared to be in a chase with you at all. And crouching is one of literally the biggest counters to a Slasher knife throw. If you're able to crouch to the side or just crouch under the knife, you will be fine. Like, you will absolutely just not get hit. And because the knife animation, or not the knife animation, just like the knife hitbox is the size of a literal atom. Like, literally just the size of a tiny atom, or just as somebody likes to call it, a wet spaghetti noodle, because that is literally what it's literally what the hitbox size is. Other than that, I mean, you have some great snipes, some pretty good angles, and so on and so forth. Next skill in the A tier, Stareater, newest edition. Honestly, pretty solid, really good anti-loop as well. I'm not gonna say much about him, other than he's just really solid overall. I mean, granted, you just have to crouch. Not many people realize that you can just crouch and then not activate it, which I don't know why. But I mean, sometimes you can literally get away with like some things that you'll be surprised. The solid anti-loop, really good at Haverhill, of course, and has just pretty good chase overall. And his passive is solid passive, not game changing, but pretty solid overall. But I mean, yeah, so Stareater is just a pretty good anti-loop. His teleport is instant, and you can lunge instantly as well, which is amazing, like absolutely amazing. And just overall a solid killer just to play as and to play against. You feel like it's fun to play against this killer, and it's fun to play as the killer as well. That's what I feel like, if you know how to use the killer, right? If you don't, then you're probably going to be struggling a little. But once you get the hands of it, you will have a lot of fun. All right. And not last, but we're gonna move up to Host. Host is also pretty good. I mean, if your team is not disarming traps for you, you will be having a very tough time in chase against this killer, unless you keep transitioning. But if you run out of transitions, that's bad. And if your teammates aren't disarming traps, that's also really bad, because then you're like, where are my teammates at? Why aren't they disarming and stuff like that? So I mean, She's annoying to go against on, especially man, hospital, because I honestly I don't know why, man. That map with host is such a nightmare. And wastewater, those are two dominant maps. If you're up against the host on one of those two maps, you better hope somebody's on their tail 24/7. If not, you will be having the worst time of your life. You're gonna be paranoid if you're gonna be running into a trap here or not, and it's just a bunch of things you have to worry about. That's really all I can say. But other than that, you know, might have a short lunge, but I mean, she's still pretty good overall. It's like a 1 second lunge. I'm pretty sure, right? It's like a 1 second lunge, but I mean, still pretty fast one at that as well. Is able to deny areas too, and it's just overall a pretty solid killer. Is she good in open maps? No, of course not. Kind of. It just depends on how well the team is and how coordinated they are. And if they're not coordinated, you're going to be having a great time. Other than that, though, she's kind of in an A tier, I feel like. And last but not least, of course, we have Experiment. Now, the reason why I'm putting Experiment at A tier is because I've been playing him a lot the past couple streams, past couple days, and I've been doing really good. And I'm seeing the potential he has. Not many people realize. The vault slowdown is actually pretty noticeable. Like, it's actually pretty good. And not as much as people think it's not that good, it is actually pretty good. And the slowdown you get after you unburrow is pretty solid as well, right? It requires some people to use some stamina and they have to transition to a place, right? Granted, if it's a good loop, then yeah. But you can get vault hits so funnily sometimes, depending on when they vault, because that slowdown can help you a lot, especially with mind gaming as well. And I feel like he is actually a solid killer. His aftershock, now that you're able to control it, is also pretty good. Because I mean, like, you know, you're able to choose what generator you want to put it on, and you don't have to kick the gen, you can just mark it. So you can just, like, let's say you're about to chase somebody and then, you know, the gen's at like 85%. You just mark it and someone goes to tap it, loses some progress, right? You can go back, kick it, so on and so forth. It really wastes a good amount of time on the survivor side. But I mean, his map, his mobility is really good. His chase is solid. His lunge is, I don't know if it's just me, but his lunge is like weird right now, where it's like people say he's fast. Now, I don't think he's fast. I just think there's something up with his lunge hitbox where he feels like he's lunging from farther away, but he's not. I don't know. It's weird. He's a 6 speed and he has a 1.5 second lunge cooldown. But I mean, other than that, he's solid. I just think his hitbox whenever he lunges is a bit weird. It is a bit inconsistent at times. But I mean, other than that, he's a pretty good killer. I feel like he's a pretty good killer, and a lot of people hate him. A lot of people really hate the rat. Now his counters, of course, are just stand next to a vault, right? But remember, you still get affected by vault slowdown and all that stuff. So then now you're basically having to deal with vault slowdown for a while, and it's pretty detrimental. It's pretty noticeable. It's pretty detrimental sometimes in chase. So that's the one thing you gotta be aware of. In terms of gen patrolling, he's also pretty solid as well. He can gen lock pretty decently, and yeah, that is what I think. That's why I'm putting Experiment. I'm gonna put him slightly above Host, just because of that. And of course, we're down to our final two, Empress and Idol. Now, of course, we're gonna get to the final two killers, which I'm gonna say pretty quickly. Okay, number one, Idol. Okay, reason why he's S tier is because he is just absolutely annoying with his obsession. Now, many people I see many people quickly, they always say, oh, but he's just an M1 killer. You can just loop him normally. Why is he overpowered? No, let me tell you why. And that is because he is able to literally stall a game for so long. It is actually insane. His obsession, whenever you obsess somebody with the hearts and whatnot, their repair speed goes down 20%, which, for example, let's say you're a 10 repair, you go down to 8. If you're a 5 repair, you go down to 4. And if you have 3 repair, you go down to 2.4. It's just, and so on and so forth. You reduce the repair speed of a player, and it is so noticeable and detrimental as a looper, because now you're sitting on that gen for so much longer, and you're just like, oh my god, please just chase me or something. And they're not going to chase you if they know that you have like low repair speed. And if you're a Sarah or Nathan or Mamo, oh my god, good luck with repairing generators, because you're going to be sitting on that gen for a long time. It's a pretty decent chunk of repair lost. So, I mean, in terms of how good he is, his chase, his versatility is still pretty well too. He has pretty decent chase. Okay, his vault speed helps him a lot. And he is just overall just a good killer, just all around. So that's why I'm saying he's in the S tier, and why many others, I feel like, or some others are saying that he's also high S. It's because he just stalls games. He's able to do chase pretty well. And he is just such a overall all-rounder at the end of the day. And finally, we're gonna go Empress. I'm putting her above, of course, because this killer is, oh my god. When I tell you it's just press E and you win chase, it is literally just press E. The amount of times I've gone up against Empresses and I just literally am like, oh boy, here we go. Press E and go down. It's like, it's insane. Now you might be saying to yourself, well then why don't you just hug a vault? Okay, I'll do that. But then again, do you know how inconsistent Empress's hitbox is? If you sit at a vault and you literally, and if let's say they go in the direction you want them to, right? And they dash and you vault, it still hits. Like I did it in one video. I'll probably show an example up where they vault and react to it, but it somehow still hit him the other side of the vault. And that's what I mean. Her dash is inconsistent. It can be really inconsistent in chase sometimes, where it's like you're up to their back and it somehow doesn't count as a hit, and so many other things. But I mean, at the end of the day though, she's still just an overall really good chase ender. Just ends chases really fast and can just close the gap on distance just in such a short amount of time. Like, I mean, the biggest counter to her, of course, are stunners and Linden, right? If you have a Linden in your match and you're going to try using your dash, good luck, because there's probably going to be somebody waiting for you, me, waiting for you to dash, and then that dash not for it to work, and now you're just like an M1 killer, basically. But, yeah, that's all I really got all to say. You know, this is, like I said, my own tier list, my version. You know, I know I talked a lot, but I mean, still, I'll timestamp it as much as I can so that everybody can understand which section is which, you know, if they want to hear their killer. At the end of the day, you know, all killers are, you know, are used differently, and every match is going to be different whenever you use the killer. Just know that it all comes down to the type of players you're going against and how good they are and how well they play. Because some of these killers, while I may have ranked them like pretty well, some of them could go lower because of how easily countered they can be. But like I said, this is all public. This is the day I'm basing this off of my public games, how many times I've gone up against them, and how each match has gotten, or how each match has gone. Other than that, I hope you guys have a great rest of your guys' day, and do not start anything in the feedback and suggestion channels, please. Like at all, again, about this tier list, please. I beg of you, because this is my own version, and I don't want people starting drama over it. All right, because I just want to make this just to get it out of the way, and just to share my own opinion. All right. Take care, y'all, and peace out.